Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, is it working?
Oh, no.
Yes, it is.
All right. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Great. Thanks to everyone who's stuck around here. We're going to talk about resets. We're going to talk about sort of what's happening in the world right now. Who uses AI right now for coding or for like everybody? Okay, I just wanted to get a sense of who I'm talking to here. Yeah, so there's actually a quote I like to start off with. It's by science fiction writer William Gibson, and he talks about how the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. And I'll give you an example of this. I'll actually give you two. One was last night. We were, actually it was somebody from PhotoRoom here, Juliet, she was showing us. I was like, what's PhotoRoom? She's like, oh, it's pretty cool. It's an app, and we do pictures for e-commerce. I was like, that's pretty interesting. Actually, Colin over here and I were absolutely amazed at her demo, taking a picture, and suddenly there's a video of me carrying a pink purse. I cannot show it to you, but trust me, it was pretty hilarious to see that. And what shocked me about that was just how quickly we were able to use AI to create a video, and it looked pretty good. It looked pretty convincing. Another example, when I realized that the future had sort of been reset on us, was a couple months ago. I was in Arizona taking a Waymo. Driverless taxi. I don't know if you have those here yet. But I was also on my phone coding with Claude and pushing code to GitHub. And this was about an 8-minute Waymo trip. And that was kind of jarring because we're talking about a driverless car using AI to write code that would have taken you hours or days to write, and deploying it all within a matter of minutes. And that was I was like, crap, that's pretty cool. So you imagine 5 years ago, we were not having this discussion. If I were to tell you that we would be in driverless cars, writing code on your phone using AI and deploying it with agents, you would have thought that would be crazy, right? Who would have been not unsurprised by that, right? That's insane. I think it's still pretty cool. And so this is what I mean by the great reset moment we're in right now. I feel like no matter where I go in the world, when I talk to practitioners, when I talk to leaders, it feels like the reset button has been hit across many industries too, not just data, but if you're talking legal, if you're talking marketing, if you're talking any industry, it feels like things have been sort of the table. I'm not going to flip this table over, but we sort of it's been flipped over, right? And people are trying to figure out what's happening. It's like we're all collectively staring off into this void and wondering what's on the other side of it. And so that's what I want to talk about today. But let's talk about the world before the reset, right? So I group the work that we do as data practitioners into two buckets. There's work that we do in enterprise land and work that we do in product land. Now, enterprise land is usually identified by data as a back office, internal-facing IT function, where it's normally a cost center, right? So we're talking internal reporting, we're talking about building the dashboards, getting the reports that nobody reads, and all this kind of stuff, right? Things that the business feels that it needs to do, work that I think all of us by this point feel it's work, right? And then it's always the big question of what's the ROI of what we do, right? And now there's also product land. Product land, I think, is more revenue driving, right? So data is part of the product. So if you can think of an app like maybe PhotoRoom, for example, or any of the vendors out here, like data is the product. It's embedded in it. There's no question about the ROI of what you're doing. At least I hope not. It should be attributable back to the customer, right? And so those are the two worlds that we've been operating in. But 99% of the companies that I see out there, they're in enterprise land right now, right? And so we've been dealing with the same problems for decades. It's how to establish the ROI of data, right? How do we get value from data? And especially, and ROI is very difficult to assess with data, right? And then we have to govern it, obviously. I don't think that goes away no matter what. And also, you might have a chief data officer trying to lead these new charges. And it's funny, the average life, who knows the average lifespan of a chief data officer? What, 2 years? Yeah, about that, yeah, right? So it's a bit discouraging when you look at those numbers. I've seen 18 months, some people last longer, but if that's so it's kind of frustrating because if that's the peak of your career journey as a data practitioner to leader, that's kind of depressing. Like, so by the time I start my job, they're already looking for my replacement. That's great. So there's a high turnover of CDOs, and in the meantime, the old world that I'd say the current world we're in, we're dealing with the world of the modern data stack, right? So this is mainly batch. We're talking ELT versus ETL. We might be modeling data, usually with Kimball, or one big table, or what I call a WTF, a wide, tall, and full table. But this is mainly an analytics first journey, right? So again, this is 99% of companies out there. And we spent decades optimizing within these systems instead of reinventing it, right? But I think right now we're at a moment where reinvention is actually back on the table again. Who remembers when ChatGPT launched? That was about 3 years ago to this day, actually, right? It's funny, I was talking to my friend Luke, who was on the team that launched ChatGPT. He told me he didn't think that they would get more than 10,000 users. Like, they didn't take it seriously at all. They launched it, and it's like, nobody's going to use this. And then he said that what made it popular were kids were starting to post videos of themselves cheating on college essays and exams with ChatGPT on TikTok, and then all of a sudden it blew up. And then I think a month or two later it was at 100 million users. This is the fastest growing consumer app of all time. I think still it is. Which is crazy, right? So then all of a sudden, 2023, 2024, I start going to conferences. Well, I've been going to conferences for a long time, but the mood had changed. The message had changed. It was not about modern data stack anymore. It was not about data mesh, which was the prior hot topic. It was all of a sudden about AI everywhere. It was all about, we need to do AI. I remember going to countries, I went to Dubai and met with the minister of AI. They have that there. So it's like, and AI was just, it suddenly took off. Every vendor had AI embedded in its product. Most of them were like really clumsy chatbot interfaces, I think you can all remember. So there's kind of this evolution of AI where it was, let's put ChatGPT in front of our product and you can talk to it. That had mixed results. Now you fast forward to today, it's all about agents, which we'll talk about more. Who's using AI agents? Who's heard of AI agents? Everybody? Great, cool. So this is what's happening though, right? All of a sudden, every vendor had to reassess their place in the universe. When I was at Big Data London a couple months ago, me and this other founder were staring off onto the floor of all the vendors out there, and we're like, I don't think half of these vendors survive in the next 5 years. For a lot of reasons, I don't. It's going to be too hard to reorient the product. You almost have to rethink your product from the ground up if you're going to be AI-centric, which we'll talk more about. But to assume that in today's world, your SaaS offering is going to survive the next 5 years, I think that's an open-ended question. We'll see what happens. And what you're seeing too is you're seeing projects take off faster than ever. Fast MCP went from a project that had no users a year ago, almost to today, to having 1 million downloads per day, right? That's insane. OpenAI is going to probably IPO at a $1 trillion valuation, assuming this whole bubble doesn't pop, which I think it will. But that notwithstanding, you're seeing record growth in companies that are hitting 1 million plus in ARR in like 9 months, which is like insane, unheard of. So there's real value that's being generated no matter what. Again, is there a bubble? Absolutely. I think if you have to ask yourself if you're in a bubble, you're in one, right? And I think given the amount of money that's been thrown into this, I'm looking at my friend Paco over here, who's been through a few of these things before. Yep. So it's, it'll happen. But that doesn't excuse the utility of what we're talking about. I remember when the dot-com boom and bust happened, and it's not like the internet went away. who uses the internet, right? So I think it's one of these things where you need to definitely establish that, yes, you're in a bubble, but innovation is where, it happens in bubbles. Bubbles are necessary for innovation to occur. You don't get innovation in stagnant environments. And so you absolutely need a bubble. This means that there's excitement. That means there's a story that people want to throw, in this case, trillions of dollars into. But the opposite, if this didn't happen, if ChatGPT hadn't taken off, you would be in a situation where we'd still be arguing about, modern data stack tooling or something, right? I think that's a pretty boring conversation compared to where we are now. Of course, not everything's great. There's the infamous MIT study that said 95% of generative AI projects fail. If you actually dig into the report, it's not that bad actually. And also there's another study about freelancers using agents. I think 2.5% of tasks were automated by agents. So there's still a lot of room to grow here, but we're still in early days. But the biggest tell really is what I'm seeing is with non-technical people and people bringing their own AIs to work. Who brings their own, actually I'm not going to tell you, just wink if you, or blink twice if you bring your own AI to work and use it there, right? You see this a lot, shadow AI is a new thing. So there's a lot of utility here. But again, you contrast this with kind of where we were, right? And things are just moving faster and faster and faster. Who feels like they can keep up today with what's going on? Okay, Tiankai, that's awesome, good job. So this brings us to kind of a tale of two worlds, right? So what changes and what doesn't change? I wrote a book called Fundamentals of Data Engineering. I don't think fundamentals change. When I look at the rubric we laid out with the data engineering lifecycle and the undercurrents, I think that's actually more important to understand than ever, right? Ingesting data, storing it, transforming it, serving it, as well as the undercurrents, right? We're talking security. In those situations, does security disappear, even when AI agents, in fact, it's more important than ever. I would say hacking is going to be on the rise, and hackers are going to have a field day with everything you guys are building right now. It's awesome. And then data governance is the other one. The previous speaker was talking about how governance was a central framework for the work that she's doing. I absolutely agree. And so all these principles that we've been struggling, I would say, to get adoption in the industry, right? Things like data modeling, which I'm also writing a book about. Like all this stuff is back in vogue now. Data governance for the first time is actually a sexy topic, right? It's like these were not cool topics. These were topics that the business would just yawn at, right? Especially if you're in enterprise land, where you're the cost center. But now every company wants to do AI, and this is the big difference that we're in now, where all the stuff that you guys have been complaining about for years, like I can't get anybody to understand what we do with data. You do now. There's attention on this. There's money that people want to do AI. In a lot of cases, corporate boards and executives are mandated to do this. This is your time to shine. What does change? Well, a couple of things that don't change. One of the biggest factors in why AI is still not getting adoption is the organizational pieces, right? It's the classic people, process, and technology. And so if you look at the success rate of AI, in a lot of cases, it's, who's heard of Conway's law? Right. Conway's law tells you that you're going to design systems and ways of communicating, that match the way your organization communicates and the way it's structured, right? You ship your org chart, so to speak. So that's going to be one of the fundamental barriers, which we'll talk about in a second. But what does change? We're moving from a world of determinism to probabilistic systems, right? AI is inherently probabilistic. It is not, function. You're dealing with multimodal data now, not just tables. We live in a world typically of tables or semi-structured data. That's changing. We're moving to a world where we're dealing with images, photos, video, text, all this stuff. And now we need to figure out, how do we model data in this new world? Right? That's the work I've been working on with my data modeling work, is like, how do we model data in a world where things are heterogeneous? You have different types of data that need to match, and so forth. You're moving from a world, I think, of batch to where streaming is also a first-class citizen. I think that you're going to see batch will still be here, but I think it's, and in some cases it'll go the way of the dial-up modem. And you're dealing with things, you're dealing with action-oriented architectures now. Right, I think this is a big one. Somebody was asking me, about the shape of analytics going forward, and I think if you look at what analytics is useful for, right, analytics is meant so you can make a decision to take an action on. But increasingly in a world with agents, those things are going to be doing the actions. So you're removing a lot of the human in the loop with decision making, which I think is great. It's also really scary. But now this means that you're going to need to think about how you engineer these systems that take autonomous actions. What does good look like? What are the boundaries in terms of the actions that it takes? And so, and you're also moving into a world where you're moving from a data-oriented world to a knowledge-oriented world, right? So you're probably hearing words like ontology, semantics, taxonomies. These also were very unsexy terms for many, many years. Now, all of a sudden, everybody is an expert in ontology, right? And semantics. This is only going to continue. And so as data engineers, your role is going to be, I would say, changing a lot in the sense where you're going to be moving from, being at the center of orchestrating workflows to having, autonomous bots doing a lot of the workflows for you, right? It's not going to be so much about writing code anymore, but you do need to understand, I think, at a higher level and at a deeper level as well, the fundamentals of good architecture, the fundamentals of sound design, the fundamentals of data engineering. This is actually more important than ever. And I think one of the kind of closing out here, one of the questions that I get is, well, robots are going to take my job, right? AI is going to take my job. Who feels that way here? Who has any fears of that? I mean, nobody's raising their hands. That's good. Everywhere else in the world, I think there's, in the back of people's minds, it feels like there's some concern about the role of engineers in the next few years, right? Do they go away? I don't think so, actually. I think more than ever, engineers are going to be important. But what's going to change is you're going to need to think in terms of systems. You need to think in terms of design. You're going to think in terms of being a manager, so to speak, of not humans, but machines, right? So not a manager, well, kind of like in the Michael Scott sort of way, but sort of not. But the role is going to be changing a lot, and so but I think what remains really is our sense of craftsmanship. I think right now there's sort of a question of what is craftsmanship worth when I can just vibe code apps in a matter of minutes. And what I think you're going to see is a lot of AI. I gave a talk earlier this year called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch of AI Slopware, and that was very much about how AI vibe-coded apps are going to be the norm, and it's going to just be this sea of just crap out there. Guess who gets to figure all that out? You guys. Because guess how much data is out there? However many apps there are, right? So this is a new confounding problem that I think everyone here needs to start thinking about. This combination of shadow AI, making apps on the fly, data sources. How does all this tie together? But I think that the closing vision of this is we're all back at the starting line again. We're all starting over. I remember on a podcast I did with Tyler Akado. He's one of the best streaming engineers on the planet. Built a lot of the stuff at Google, for example. He said that he's starting over right now, right? He feels like he has the question about, what's his role as an engineer and how does he use these new tools, right? And so if somebody like him feels that way, I'm certain that you guys have the same questions, I hope. But I would say that this is an exciting time. I've been in the industry for a while. Some of my other friends have as well. I am stoked right now. I'm having so much fun building again and just finding new ways, new opportunities to build. And I hope all of you have that same feeling of this is a new era right now. The reset button has been hit, but we all are off staring into this sort of black hole wondering what's on the other side. But I think in times like this, it's important to know that each and every one of you can actually build what's on the other side. You don't need to wait for people to tell you what to do. And this is a very different situation than we've been in the past, where you've had to just sit there and say, well, I guess I'll just accept what's handed to me, right? Data modeling approach, A, B, or C, data warehouse system, this. No, this is a time when you can be building new architectures, new systems, new ways of thinking. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The only other opportunity I've seen like this was during the internet, and I feel this actually has far greater potential. The other one was mobile, actually, when that came out, but I feel like this eclipses everything here. So I would say for all of you here, please, charge forth, build the future, get each other excited, because I think this is a great opportunity for each and every one of you to reset the industry. So thank you very much.